Reset your mind daily. You don't always need a revelation to feel better. You don't have to wait for a major breakthrough, a total transformation, or the perfect set of steps to start healing or feeling like yourself again. The world often tells us that change must be dramatic, that we need to overhaul our routines, master our thoughts, or discover some elusive secret to wellness in order to find peace. But the truth is, sometimes what we really need isn't something big at all. Sometimes it's the smallest shift that makes the biggest difference. Not another goal to chase, not another routine to build, not another fix to force upon your already overloaded nervous system. Just a brief pause, a sliver of stillness, a gentle return to something familiar, not because it's flashy or new, but because it's quietly, profoundly true. Before we continue, if any part of this video resonates with you, tell me in the comments which of these signs have you been seeing in your life. And if you're ready to step into your best self, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Your future is waiting. Now, go claim it. Let's continue. We're living in an era where self-care has become a performance, a checklist, a curated list of actions we're told will bring us balance. Meditate for 20 minutes. Do yoga every morning. Write 3 pages in a journal. Track your sleep. Hit your step count. Drink more water. Breathe deeply, intentionally, at just the right pace. These are all meaningful practices. But what happens when we're too weary to start them? What happens when your mind is cluttered, when your chest feels heavy, when everything you're feeling is tangled into a knot you can't seem to loosen? In those moments, it's not another task that will help. It's a pause, a breath, a moment of space, a sliver of awareness that slips between the noise and says, "You're still here. That's enough for now." Not everything needs to be fixed. Not every emotion needs to be understood, or analyzed, or organized into meaning. Some feelings simply want to be witnessed. Some thoughts just need space to soften. Some days, your greatest act of self-care might be to stop trying to change yourself and instead meet yourself, fully, honestly, with compassion. The ancient Stoics understood this. To them, the practice of philosophy wasn't a grand intellectual pursuit. It was a daily ritual of return. A return to clarity, to simplicity, to the kind of wisdom that lives not in books, but in breath, body, and presence. They knew that we don't always need more productivity. What we often need is less pressure, fewer expectations, more truth, more gentleness. This isn't about grand gestures or life-altering rituals. This is about the subtle, the unnoticed, the quiet recalibrations that can shift your entire inner world in just a moment, without requiring anything more than your presence. Because sometimes your mind doesn't need more input. It needs quiet. Sometimes your heart doesn't need to be healed. It needs to be heard. Sometimes your nervous system doesn't need to be calmed. It needs permission to soften, to slow, to simply be. So if you're feeling burnt out, emotionally flooded, mentally scattered, if your sense of self feels buried beneath the noise, consider this your invitation to slow down. Not as a strategy, but as a kindness. To meet your experience without trying to shape it into something better. To let yourself land, just as you are. Let's begin with one simple habit. You don't need a journal for this. You don't need to sit cross-legged in silence or light a candle. You don't even need a plan. All you need is a few quiet seconds in the morning, before the world enters, before the headlines, the emails, the schedules, the expectations flood in. Just sit. On the edge of your bed, or wherever your feet first touch the floor. Don't reach for your phone. Don't engage with the to-do list in your mind. Let the silence come to you. Let the weight of your own presence gather. And ask from a place of sincerity, not from habit, not from routine, not as a formality. How am I, really? Not, how should I be? Not, how do I want to be? Not, how do I need to present myself today? But how am I, truly, in this moment? This isn't about answering quickly or solving anything. It's about allowing the question itself to open a space within you, to interrupt the automatic patterns, to remind you that, before anything else, you are a human being with a living, breathing inner world that deserves to be noticed. That one honest question, asked with genuine attention, can be a powerful homecoming. You don't need to fix your feelings. You don't need to silence your mind. You don't need to become anything other than what you already are. You only need to return to this moment, to your breath, to your body, to your presence. And that's where we begin. This is not just a kiko. The Stoics, perhaps more than any other philosophical tradition, understood the importance of beginning from within. They knew that wisdom doesn't come from control or efficiency, but from awareness. Look well into thyself, wrote Marcus Aurelius. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. He wasn't speaking of strength as willpower or intensity, but the quiet resilience that comes from seeing yourself clearly. Not as an idea, as a reality. Seneca, too, was a student of reflection. He wrote that each night he would sit with himself, calmly examining the hours that had passed. Where did I act wisely? Where did I falter? Where did emotion cloud my judgment? And where did virtue shine through? His questions were not accusatory. They were invitations to refine character, to return to self-honesty. But just as the evening offers closure, the morning offers entry. A new beginning, not of action, but of alignment. Before you move, before you speak, before the day asks anything of you, what if you ask something of yourself? Not a demand, but a question. How am I, really? Not, what do I need to do today? Not, how can I get motivated? Not, what's wrong with me? Simply, what is true right now, inside me? Maybe you find anxiety, not tied to anything specific, but like a residue of unprocessed stress from the day before. Or perhaps you feel flat, emotionally quiet, unsure if it's peace or numbness. Maybe there's a glimmer of hope, a gentle readiness, or sorrow, for reasons you can't name. The point isn't to solve it, it's to see it, to let the truth of your inner world rise without judgment. This tiny moment, this simple practice, becomes something more profound when repeated daily. Over time, it creates an inner map, a pattern of noticing. You begin to recognize when your thoughts are spiraling, when your body is tight with anticipation, when you are avoiding or overriding your own needs. But you also begin to notice the subtle joys, the calm mornings, the grounded energy, the quiet courage that sometimes appears without fanfare. No app will do this for you. No productivity hack. No guided meditation. Those things can support, but they are not substitutes for presence. This habit, this pause, is more powerful because it asks nothing of you but honesty. And in a world that asks you to be everything all at once, that is a radical act. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, don't reach for your phone. Don't scroll. Don't plan. Let the light come in slowly. Let the weight of the morning settle into your body. Place your feet on the floor. Breathe and ask, how am I, really? Not for the sake of control, but for the sake of connection. To yourself, to what is real, to the part of you that doesn't need to perform in order to be worthy of care. This is the beginning, not of your day, but of your return. Your return to what is essential: breath, body, awareness. And from there, a life that is lived not automatically, but intentionally. Let that be enough, for now. Let that be your first gesture of wisdom. The purpose of this morning pause is not to analyze or fix what you feel. It is not to judge the quality of your thoughts or to determine whether your emotional state is right or wrong. The aim is far simpler and far more profound: to notice. To notice what is arising within you. To observe your inner weather, the way you might watch clouds move across a sky, without interference, without narrative, without needing the sun to return immediately. And in that act of noticing, honest, quiet, unforced, something subtle begins to shift. The mind, which may have felt tight or scattered, begins to soften. The nervous system, which perhaps woke up already carrying the weight of urgency, begins to settle. Not because you forced it to, but because you allowed space for what is. This is the paradox. What we resist tends to harden. It tightens its grip. But what we acknowledge, gently and without judgment, begins to release its hold. It starts to move. And often, that's all it needed. By pausing to notice, you're communicating something essential to yourself. I see you. I'm listening. I'm here. And that message, subtle though it may be, is not indulgence. It's not self-pity. It's not weakness. That is intelligence. Emotional intelligence. The kind of intelligence that doesn't come from textbooks or strategies, but from presence, from knowing how to be with your own experience without abandoning yourself in the process. Most people move through their entire day misaligned, disconnected from themselves, not because they're bad or careless, but because they never paused long enough to check in. They wake up, flip on the mental switch, and go into the to-do list, into the news feed, into caffeine and conversations and obligations. In that rush, they override the most basic question of all: how am I really doing today? And when that question goes unanswered, we become strangers to ourselves. Let's bring this into the real. Imagine this. You've been sitting at your desk for hours. Your body is slumped in the same chair, shoulders rounded, your eyes glued to the same screen. The mental fog has crept in slowly, not dramatically, but insistently. Your thoughts feel sluggish. Your motivation flickers. You keep trying to push through, to force clarity, but it's like trying to wring water from a dry sponge. Now pause. What if the answer wasn't to try harder, but to move differently? What if, instead of battling through the fog, you simply got up from the chair, not to stretch out an ache or tick off a habit, but to shift your perspective, to change the coordinates of your awareness? Maybe you lie down on the floor, face up, and look at the ceiling you never really see anymore. Maybe you walk into another room, sit on the edge of the bathtub, and listen to the quiet hum of the house. Maybe you take your coffee and sit on the stairs instead of the couch. Or you step outside for 3 minutes and let your eyes soften against the sky. Maybe you sit beneath your desk for a minute, not to be silly, but to change the angle, to play, to disrupt the expected. It might sound absurd. It might seem trivial, but it isn't. Because you're not just moving your body, you're moving your awareness. You're giving your nervous system a new stimulus, a new set of signals. You're telling your mind, we're not stuck. There's more than one way to be here. And from that small shift, something starts to stir. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but slowly, like the way light returns through fog. Perception begins to clear. You start to feel things again. Notice again. Think differently, even if just slightly. And often, that's all you need. Change does not have to be epic to be effective. It just has to be intentional. Even the smallest deviation from your usual path can reawaken parts of your mind, that we're numbed by routine. It reminds you, on a somatic level, that you are not stuck, that there are always other ways of seeing, being, feeling. The Stoics, minimal as they were, understood this deeply. They practiced self-distancing, voluntary discomfort, and unfamiliar routines, not because they were ascetic or joyless, but because they wanted to remain awake. They knew how easy it was to slide into the grooves of habit and lose contact with what matters. When you move your body into a new position, even if just a few feet in a different direction, you are not just shifting space, you are shifting possibility. You are making room for a new kind of attention, and with that attention comes clarity, aliveness, and a quiet reminder that you are not bound by your routines. You are simply shaped by them, and what is shaped can always be reshaped. So, the next time you feel your day becoming flat, repetitive, dull, not in the dramatic way, but in the slow, creeping sense that you're not quite here, pause, get up, shift, even if just a few inches. Sit differently. Look out a different window. Lean against a wall. Lie down in the hallway. Not because it fixes everything, but because it reminds you of something essential. You are not stuck. You are still able to move. And where there is movement, there is hope. You rise slowly, feeling the tug of routine, its weight, its comfort, its inertia. And yet, today, instead of doing what you've always done, you walk into another room, quietly, without drama. You lower yourself to the floor, resting on your stomach, your cheek against the earth. You let your eyes settle on a different window, one you rarely look through. The view isn't grand or picturesque. It's ordinary. A fence, a tree, a sliver of sky. And still, something subtle shifts. Your breath begins to slow, not because you willed it to, but because your body sensed it could. A thought appears, not forced, not chased. It just arrives. A softness settles into your shoulders, your chest, your hands. You haven't solved anything, but you've changed something. Your relationship to the moment. And not by fixing or controlling it, but by repositioning yourself within it. This is the quiet power of physical perspective. Or imagine this. It's been an emotionally heavy day. The kind where your mind feels crowded and your chest tight. Instead of numbing out or pushing forward, you go to your bedroom. You don't lie down. You don't reach for your phone. You sit on the floor, your back to the door, as if symbolically turning your attention inward. You close your eyes. No task. No goal. Just stillness. Just presence. In that position, low to the ground, disconnected from the usual postures of performance, something begins to loosen. The emotions that once felt like a storm start to soften into weather patterns you can observe. You're not dissociating. You're witnessing. Not avoiding, but noticing. The ache is still there, but it's no longer running the show. It has become part of the landscape, not the whole terrain. If you want to go deeper, pair this physical shift with a question. A simple one. A gentle one. What am I not seeing? Or perhaps, if I looked at this differently, literally and emotionally, what might begin to change? You're not seeking answers in a desperate scramble. You're not pressuring clarity. You're inviting it. And that invitation alone, the willingness to be with yourself in a new way, is often enough to begin the process of realignment. These are not acts of optimization. They are acts of remembrance, of saying to yourself, I don't have to stay where I've always stood, sat, or thought. Choose one moment each day to interrupt your physical default, not for aesthetic, not for productivity, but for presence, for breath, for space. Change the height. Stand when you normally sit. Change the location. Rest in a room that has gone unused for months. Change the angle. Lean your back against a wall, eyes closed. Change the posture. Curl into a ball. Lie flat on your back. Stretch your arms across the floor. Do it not to achieve anything, but to remind yourself that stillness is allowed to shift, and your experience of the world is allowed to be reoriented, even within the same room, even within the same day. Ask yourself now, with gentle curiosity, where do I always sit? Where do I always think? And where have I not paused in a long while? Then go there. Do nothing. Breathe. Observe. Because sometimes the most effective way to change your inner world is not to think differently, but to see differently. To place your body where your mind can remember, I am not stuck. 3. Wear a color that reflects your intention. Let's talk about something we do every single day, often without attention, often with the speed of habit. We get dressed. We reach into closets, drawers, baskets, and choose clothing almost automatically. The same sweater, the same jeans, the same color palette, often neutral, often safe, often reflecting not who we are, but what we've settled into. For convenience, for function, for invisibility. But clothing is not just fabric. It's language. It's an energetic interface between your body and the world. And perhaps more importantly, it's a message you send inward, not just outward. The Stoics believed that virtue should show itself in action, not in appearance. And yet, they also understood the symbolic power of appearance. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, often reminded himself to return to simplicity, to clothe the self not in extravagance, but in intention. What if, instead of dressing from autopilot, we dressed from awareness? What if the colors we put on our bodies in the morning could become a small ritual of alignment? A way of saying, this is how I want to feel today. This is what I want to remember. This is the energy I want to carry. Color is not just visual, it's emotional. It moves something inside us. Think of how you feel in deep blue, or golden yellow, or soft green. Think of the difference between wearing all black when you're already emotionally heavy, versus allowing yourself something light, soft, or unexpected. Wearing color with intention is not about style, it's about signal. You're signaling to yourself that today, even in this small way, you are awake to your own presence. Maybe today you choose red, not for power, but for warmth, for confidence, for grounding. Maybe tomorrow you wear white, not to impress, but to remind yourself of clarity, simplicity, a return to stillness. Maybe you choose a single accessory, a scarf, a bracelet, a pair of socks, that symbolizes your internal state. You don't have to explain it to anyone. You don't have to post about it. It's not for them, it's for you. If any part of this video resonates with you, tell me in the comments which of these signs have you been seeing in your life. And if you're ready to step into your best self, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Your future is waiting. Now, go claim it.